What I know about Bigfoot encounters now, at my age now, and I've just turned 61, I know this is pretty typical. They'll find a camp, isolated camp, they'll circle it, they'll try to bluff people out of their area, and so now it doesn't seem strange. It did when you're 18 years old and you've never encountered anything like this. In May of 1971, I was 18 years old and about to graduate from Clarksville High School, class of 71. My father, the late Hugh Holley, his nickname was Bud, one of our cousins named Earl Varley, my brother-in-law Sonny Walston, and one of my very best friends whose identity has always been asked to be protected, and I refer to him as AC. My dad took us to Broken Bow Lake. It had recently opened. When I say recently, it had been open for about 2 years. This area was and still is rugged. And to a couple of 18-year-old boys, one about to go into college and one about to go into the U.S. military, this was an adventure. When we got to our location on the lake that my dad and my cousin had decided to camp, and we sat there drinking to each other's health and future, and we noticed that there was a lot of movement outside of our vision around the camp. Every once in a while we could hear a grunting type of sound. AC said it was a dog, and I said, that's not a dog. We had drank a couple of beers and was getting bold. We began to trash talk the way what they call it now. Come on into the camp, and you know, if you're trying to scare us, you're not doing it. But then we got to thinking, well, that may be my brother-in-law Sonny out there trying to scare us. So we went to look in the tent, and Sonny's still sleeping. We come back to the fire. Whatever is out there still circling. We're still hearing some growls, some huffs, some limbs breaking as it moves. We got to thinking, let's go down to the beach because Dad and Earl should come in sometime. And we went to the beach. We built another little fire, and we sat there waiting on my dad and my cousin to come into camp. Soon we saw their boat coming in. First thing my dad asked when they killed the outboard motor and tossed us a rope, and we pulled their boat up into the shoreline. Dad said, what are y'all doing out here? Why aren't you in bed? Well, we're not going to say, Dad, we kind of got scared up there at camp, and Sonny's asleep, and we decided to come down here and wait on you and Earl. No, we wasn't going to tell him that. We just told him, we just come down here and wait on you. What we did, being the people we were at the time, we thought that you had to put your tents up in the tree line itself to make it seem like you're actually camping. Our tent was back among the trees. Once we turn the lanterns out, we still have a ways to walk in the dark. we were told to put the fire out also. While we put the fire out, we turned one lantern off, walked by the second lantern and turned it off, and we're in pitch darkness. We don't have a flashlight. Not like today when you go, everybody's got a flashlight when they go camping. We went in the tent, and we can still hear whatever is been circling the tent. It's still behind the tent. We still hear a we still hear, sounds like agitated walking. And we're pretty certain now that it's not a dog or anything like that. We think it might actually be some of the hill folk that might live in the area. My buddy AC says that we should put our cots together to stay warm. That's pretty strange, but we had a couple of cots, we put them together, and we slept there, and all night we kept looking at the window, expecting to see somebody peek in. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Everything went great the next day. No problems, no troubles. The last day of our trip, we had spotted, at that time it was an island. The lake was much higher than it is now, these days. Today it's more of a peninsula, but at the time it was an island. And we had spotted this mountaintop and decided our last day we were going to take our boat, go to this island, climb it, plant a small Confederate flag. Folks that might be watching this, you say, boy, what rednecks. Back in 1971, people didn't look at the Confederate flag and say, that's bigotry. That was part of a Southern heritage, and we were going to plant it. We came into this island, got out, and pulled the boat up and tied it off. We fortunately had pulled up in front of what appeared to be a rather large, well-used game trail. So we started using this game trail to go upward. It was not a hard climb. Not at 18, it wouldn't be a hard climb. We were both in pretty good physical condition. We got to the top of the mountain, or the island, whatever you choose to call it, and there were trees, all broken off 7-8 feet high. And if they weren't completely broken off, they were cracked and they had a twist. I have never heard of a Sasquatch. I've never heard of a Bigfoot. But I put that small Confederate flag in one of those breaks, in one of those twists. AC and I did our clash yell. I've been asked a lot of times when I recount this story to do the clash yell. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it as loud as a lot of people like for me to do it. It was simply, we raise hell. We have fun. We're the class of 71. And then we began our descent back to the beach, back to the boat, where we can go back and help break camp, before we can go back to our home in Clarksville. So we really didn't want to monkey around. But as we started down the mountainside, we noticed that off to our left While we walked, something else was walking with us. We couldn't see it. We could only hear it walk. If we walked slow, it walked slow. If we walked fast, it walked fast. If we stopped, yeah, it stopped. We couldn't hear any of the sounds that we heard the night before. And finally we decided, well, let's throw, whoever this is, let's throw them off of our scent. We cut back to the right and began a fairly rapid descent and realized we're lost. We're on this mountaintop. This thing is still coming after us. It's crossed over the trail too. It's still to our left, but it's following us. And it stopped when we stopped because we had come to a ledge, or I call it a ledge. There was a drop of only a few feet below us. And above us, there was an overhang. And we're sitting there or standing there on this drop-off, trying to decide what we're going to do. And we hear growls. We hear the I look up. AC looks up. I'm really expecting to see a bear. What I saw was the biggest gorilla looking creature I have ever laid eyes on. We jumped and began our run, literally running downhill. And the faster we ran, the faster this thing came behind us. It wasn't off to the side anymore, it was behind us. You could hear it tearing through the brush like a bulldozer or a locomotive. Where we were having some problems, it wasn't having any problem. It was just coming. We hit the beach several yards away from the boat and ran to the boat. I jumped into the boat, cranked the outboard motor. AC jumped out of the boat as he was about to push it off and ran and found, it looked almost like a pyramid shaped rock, huge rock, and planted it right in the middle of this game trail, pushed the boat out, and we were pulling away as this thing burst through the brush. What we saw was reddish brown and stood between 7 and 8 foot tall. Guesstimates anywhere from a conservative 300 pounds to also a conservative estimate of about 800 pounds. Possibly in the 600 pounds would have been more realistic. But when you're 18 years old and scared and you see something like this, and you're not an expert at large game, all you want to do is get the hell away from it. It roared. There was no more huffing, there was no more puffing, there was no more growls. This was a bona fide roar, and it came into the water. As we pulled away from the island, it was approximately waist deep, slapping the water behind us. And the last we saw, it had turned and went back onto the island and re-entered the underbrush. That was 40-something years ago. In February of this year, of 2014, we're returning to that area. And when I say we, I'm not talking about me and AC. I'm talking about me and the group that I co-founded with my son, the Timberline Bigfoot Group.